What I want to show you here is I'm working on my Willcox Gibbs chain stitcher. This thing was made in about 1885, and one of the nice things about it is you don't have to wind bobbins. It's a chain stitcher, so it doesn't have a bobbin. And I've gotten into some discussion on the Treadle-On group about chain stitching quilt piecing type. And we've been talking about whether there's problems with unraveling with a chain stitch machine versus a lock stitch, typical machines that most people use, because a chain stitch will basically be like almost like a zipper, and it'll unzip if you pull it just right and have it set just right to do that. So I've been trying to piece this little quilt with my chain stitcher, and I'm concerned whether it's going to unravel or not. Well, so far I haven't had any problems. I want to show you some of the things I've been doing that hopefully reduces the chance of that happening. Here's a block that's not quite complete yet, but one of the things that I've been doing that I think reduces the chances of it unraveling is when I chain sew the thing, come across from here going up with these pieces, I leave these chains together and I don't cut them. So when I cross over from one piece to the next in my chain sewing, these are still connected. So by the time I get to where the block's almost finished, I've got this little connected block that's not finished yet, but it can't unravel because these aren't cut. Now the ends of a lot of these have tails on them, and on a chain stitcher, when you have these tails and you've ended your stitch line correctly, you'll have these tails that automatically lock when you pull it out of the sewing machine. And this block, every one of those is not like that. I do have a few cut tails or edges. Let's see if I can find, here's one that's locked. No, these are all, actually these are all locked. Sometimes I'll cut them, sometimes I don't, but most of the time I try not to. And that way, right now I really don't have anything on this piece that isn't locked down either with a crossover, except for maybe this piece here. Now this is one little square that's open, but you can see it's not unraveling. It's holding together quite well. As long as I don't mess with it too much, it'll probably be fine. And by the time I come in and I do my 1/4 inch seam across there, it's going to lock it down again. So basically with this, the next step I do on this block is lay it down, and I'll fold over the two edges that are chain stitched, chain sewn, and I'll match up my seams, and I'll sew across here, and I never do cut this crossover chain, so they can't unravel. They're never cut. I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, so now I've got my little pieces, my two edges pinned so I can sew them now. Now I'm going to come in here and got my thread underneath the foot and off to the side to start. I come in and I start just inside, where it's just inside on the material. Nice quiet little Willcox Gibbs. Now to start off, of course, this back thread with this tail on it is already locked. It's not coming loose. I leave these long on purpose. And go ahead and sew on down this seam. Show you how I finish off one of these so that they lock automatically without a lot of fuss. Come down to the edge of the material and just go a stitch past that. Lift my needle, and at the same time my tensioner over here is going to lift, so the thread's loose, and I pull out a length of thread, and then I come in with my snipping scissors that I keep around my neck I pull underneath the foot, and I have this loop, and the bottom thread, I'm going to come down and I'm going to cut fairly close, and then it comes right out, and there you have a tail, and it's locked. That's not going to come loose, and I can't pull it loose unless I pull that thread and make it so I can zip it loose. So that's how I start and finish, that I'm locked at both ends. And I'll sew the other side here and show you the center in a minute. Okay, so now I've got the two edges sewn, and after sewing those two edges, I don't have anything that was chain stitched, any seams that are open at all. Everything's locked. There's nothing that can unravel at this point. Where I've got these edges, I've gone over them with a stitching, or they're locked, so these can't unravel. They're covered. So now I'm going to do this center seam here. So I'm going to fold it in half. My seams are matched up almost immediately. You just go in there and make sure they're good and snug. And I pin them. Match my edges. Pin those. And just a little sidelight hit. You'll see I'm using a finger pin cushion, and I just love my finger pin cushion. It makes my pins there right for me immediately, and I highly recommend them. I just made this out of a little scrap and some batting material inside of it, and it's never really in the way. But it's always handy right there to grab a pin. Okay, now I've got my center done. I'm going to go ahead and sew it. Zip on down. Make sure I get my seam edges down. Come down to the end and get over the edge by a stitch. Lift the needle up. Pull a thread out from the side. Raise my foot and come in and snip down close to the bottom thread. Off she comes. She's locked. Good and locked. Both ends locked. So this block is basically done at this point, other than pressing it open. And everything is locked on this now. Nothing can come loose around the edges, anything. So that's the finished block, and I think the little Willcox is doing a pretty good job. Some operator error here and there, but it's okay. So that's how I think I'm going to keep it from unraveling too bad. If you can make sure all your ends are sewn down, your open ends that are cut are sewn or they're locked, you should be okay. I hope. We'll find out. Okay, I want to quickly show you the machine I'm doing this on, and this is my little Willcox Gibbs hand crank. The way I've got my light on here, I have a battery-powered light that's one of these magnet types that sits down there, and I do big spools of thread, and since you can't put those on the thread holder, spool holder on here because they're too big, I run them up. I have a homemade stand, and I run it up and over and thread it normally like you would, and that's worked very well. So I can go forever and ever. As long as that thread lasts, I can keep going. This is some of my finished blocks that I've got up on my design board, and I think it's turned out pretty good. This is a scrappy quilt, so you got lots of different colors and a real mix of fabrics in there.